just struggling with my word. So, Allah addresses this again in Surah Al-Baqarah, Surah 13 and verses 19 through 21. Shall he then, who knows that what has been revealed unto you, O Muhammad, from your Lord is the truth, be like him who is blind? So the people who believe, the people that have faith, the people that exercise and implement their iman, it's saying here, are they like the ones who don't? In other words, the people who don't obey, the people who reject and rebel against the truth of Islam and what the Quran has said, are called what? Fasid. So they're like blind people.
Yeah.
Because we know that the Quran is the haqq. It is the word of Allah. It is the only truth in the universe. Anything that scientists tell you is subject to change. Whenever I was going to school, the number of planets that were taught is different than today. But when they were teaching me how many planets they were, they swore that they were right. And now it's not the case anymore. But it is only the men of understanding and women who pay heed. Now what are we talking about understanding here? We're talking about understanding Allah's word, the Holy Quran. So if you understand it, and that's what we're trying to do, teach it to you, a couple of verses at a time, then you will pay heed. And this is why we go in such depth. This is why often, for most Sundays, we will only cover 2 or 3 verses. Now today, inshallah, we'll cover a little more, because this is sort of a transition period today. So it is only the men of understanding that pay heed. Those who fulfill the covenant of Allah and break not the mithaq, the bond, treaty, or covenant, and those who join that which Allah has commanded to be joined. That is, they are good to their relatives and do not sever the bonds of kinship, and fear their Lord and dread the terrible reckoning. Now I want to talk about this, folks, because it's important. I always get this question. Now, kinship bonds are very strong in Islam. Does that say that if your kin folks are telling you to do something that's contrary to Islam, that you should do it?
No.
Good. I just wanted to make sure, because I get that question a lot. That's not severing the bonds. But when you really believe, no matter what your kin folks are doing, you don't disobey Allah. That's just not a negotiable term. We obey Allah. The covenant that these deviant people broke is Allah's covenant with His creation. Now the scholars, I'm going to point out all of the different things scholars say today, inshallah. Everything that I've ever learned, I'm going to try to teach you. What was the first covenant? When was it?
Moses?
No?
Old Testament, Moses with the Ten Commandments?
The first covenant was the meeting that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had with the souls before we were ever created. That's the first covenant. When you declared, before you were ever a human being, when you declared as a soul, La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah, that's the covenant. And that's very powerful. Because before you were ever put in the womb of your mother, before you ever walked on the face of this earth, before you ever spoke the language that you speak, you testified that there's no God but Allah, and Muhammad was His final messenger. And that's in Surah 7. That verse is in Surah 7.
Like her baby.
That's right. This covenant was reiterated in Allah's book and by the words of His messengers. Ignoring this covenant constitutes breaking it. So there's a very deep meaning here. And this is why I'm so touched when I see people coming from countries that prohibited the practice of Islam and people are finding their way back to their covenant. They're finding their way back to Allah. They're finding their way back to truth, to guidance. It was said that ayah 27 of chapter 2, is about the disbelievers and the hypocrites among the people of the book. So in this case, the covenant that they broke is the pledge that Allah took from them in the Torah to follow Muhammad when he is sent as a prophet and to believe in him and what he is sent with. So we know that in the Injil and in the Torah, it was prophesied that this prophet would come. That's another form of covenant. So we had the covenant when we were souls, and in the covenant that was mentioned in both divine books. Well, actually all three divine books. It's very powerful, it's very deep.
That covenant that was mentioned in all three books is that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was going to be the final messenger.
Yes. Yes.
Is that mean we were in Jannah before we came here?
No, we weren't in Jannah before we came here. As a matter of fact, our rule, we don't really know the answer with that. We just know that it was with Allah. And we don't know much, at least to my knowledge, I don't know anything more about that. I know that we were not in Jannah, and you'll know why before this class is over, inshallah. Because I'm going to teach you something about that today, inshallah. So, Surah 13 and 25. And those who break the covenant of Allah after its ratification and sever that which Allah has commanded to be joined, that is, they sever the bond of kinships and are not good to their relatives, and work mischief in the land, on them is the curse. They will be far away from Allah's mercy, and for them is the unhappy evil home, that is the hellfire. So, when people find their way to Islam, and they leave Islam, it is a very, very heavy thing. It's a very serious thing. And that's why it is better to never come to Islam than to come to Islam and abandon it, to break that covenant. It's very dangerous. Yes?
Didn't Allah say once that you will make them all alive, you'll make them
Well, we make our own life hell. Yeah.
So then that's really our choice. But like if a Muslim doesn't believe in La ilaha illallah, he does do the deed anyway, he'll give them Allah.
He will not get rewarded.
I know he won't get rewarded, but Allah will give him everything in this life, but he won't give him everything.
That's exactly right. So breaking Allah's covenant in this case occurred when the people of the book rejected the prophet after they knew the truth about him. And they hid this truth from people, even though they swore to Allah that they would do otherwise. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala informed us that they threw the covenant behind their backs and sold it for a miserable price. Now, it's interesting, I think later on I talk about this somewhere. When they sold it for a miserable price, it's sort of like being upside down in a mortgage. Because you don't get the capital on your investment. You see, you can do all these good deeds in life. But if you don't have Iman, if your Aqidah is right, if your practice is not right, it will be in vain. If your intention is not to do all of your deeds for the sake of Allah, you will not be rewarded for those intentions. So a lot of people say in the world, when you're doing dawah out there, you'll meet people and they'll say, well, I'm just going to be good. I don't believe in anything. I'm just going to be a good person and I'm going to go to paradise. Well, you have to have faith. You have to have Iman. And then you have to implement the covenant. You have to practice. It was also reported that ayah 2 in verse 27 refers to all disbelievers, idol worshippers, and hypocrites. Allah took their pledge to believe in His oneness, showing them the signs that testify to His lordship. He also took a covenant from them to obey His commands and refrain from His prohibitions, knowing that His messengers would bring proofs and miracles that none among the creation could ever produce. These miracles testified to the truth of all of Allah's messengers, all 125,000 of them. The covenant was broken when the disbelievers denied what was proven to them to be authentic and rejected Allah's prophets and books, although they knew that they were the truth. This tafsir was reported from Muqatil bin Hayyan, and it is very good. It is also the view of Az-Zamakhshari. And verse 27, and several what Allah has ordered to be joined is in reference to keeping the relationships with relatives. As Qatada asserted, this ayah is similar to Allah's statement in Surah 47 and verse 22. Would you then, if you were given the authority to do mischief in the land and sever your ties of kinship? So, we do not sever ties of kinship, but do we support people in sin?
No.
Do we support Muslims in mischief in the earth?
No.
No. We love what Allah loves and we hate what Allah hates. And it's really important to get this, folks, because a lot of people take this out of context. So, one of their members of their family is a Muslim, and they go and they drink and they do various things that is haram, and they say, well, I can't sever my kinship ties. Is that a misunderstanding? Of course it is. Yes, that's my kinfolk, but I'm supposed to enjoin what is right and forbid what is wrong. If I can't change it with my hands, I must change it with my tongue. And the least of a man is to change it with my heart. So we are supposed to be making an effort to change any covenant that's broken. It's our responsibility. Yes?
So, in that case, are we allowed to call on people that, I mean, first I know after we tried to help them, and still they refuse to follow their path, are we allowed to have connection with them?
I don't know what you mean by cutting connection.
I mean, what I mean is that we then simply just let them do what they want to do, and then we just don't involve ourselves in what they're doing.
We have a choice.
Yeah.
We don't. Can I control anybody in this room? No. As a matter of fact, just talk to anybody that's married, and they'll tell you you can't control your wife, and the wife can't control the husband. Those of you that have been married, raise your hand if what I said is the truth. Oh wow, I need to talk to some other spouses here because then you know something I don't know.
I didn't raise my hand.
The only person you can control is yourself.
And even that's difficult.
And most of us can't even control ourselves. I mean, let's keep it for rizzle for sizzle. Okay? I mean, how many people, is anybody here that will say, I can control myself at all times?
No.
Look at the hands now.
Look, it's a work in progress.
But I mean, this is a big thing. So, if people are doing wrong, you don't go down that road with them because Allah hates that. But that doesn't mean that you're denying them. This is my family member. But I'm not going to support them to drink. I'm not going to support them to do things that are contrary to Islam. I'm not going to throw my clean money to them.
Yeah, that's the answer I wanted.
Yes, brother.
What do you say, like, it's money, because as society, like, we look at people and we're like, oh, this person did all the good things, but we only see what's in the outside. Like, we don't know what's in that person's heart. It's always been to them.
But if the iman is not there, the Quran specifically says it won't be fruitful. Now, I can't tell you what's in anybody's heart. But what I can tell you based on correct understanding of fiqh is that if you do not have faith, then your deeds will not be rewarded. Does everybody understand that?
Yes.
Okay, I want to make sure that's not misunderstood. Ibn Jarir al-Tabari preferred this opinion. However, it has been said that the meaning of ayat 227 here is more general. Hence, everything that Allah has commanded to nurture and the people severed is included in its meaning, which is a phenomenal tafsir. Because what has Allah commanded us to nurture? And this is going to become really alive later when we see what Allah commanded Adam alayhi salam to do, and we were supposed to follow in his footsteps. It's a big order. So Islam is the most green religion in that we're supposed to return the universe back to Allah the way that He gave it to us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us this universe without any pollution. It was absolutely pure.
Organic.
And we are supposed to return it back to Allah in the way that we got it. Okay?
Organic.
Verse 27, it is they who are the losers. Now notice that this is plural here. Those who believe not or reject faith cause loss only to themselves. Similarly, in the hereafter, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Surah 13 and 25, on them is the curse. That is, they will be far away from Allah's mercy, and for them is the unhappy evil home in hell. So what does this say, folks? Does this reiterate what I'm saying?
Yes.
Al-Dahaq reported that Ibn Abbas said every characteristic that Allah describes, those other than the people of Islam, such as being losers, refers to disbelief. So any time you are entering into disbelief, so you say, I know Allah said this, but I don't believe that. Or I know Allah said this, but where are you? You've just gone from what to what?
Nothing.
From belief to disbelief. And it's dangerous, folks. Yes, brother.
I got a question on the previous slide. You said that we have to return the universe to where we got it. What if we don't?
We have to do what now?
The universe is the way it was given to us. We have to return it the way it was.
Allahu Alam. I don't know how we will be punished, but it's
So
our
everybody would.
That means we
because
all need to recycle.
Yeah.
contribute.
One of the
You drive a car, Mason.
We can't walk everywhere.
So that's another whole lecture. We'll do that another day. I have, as a matter of fact, I have a rather intensive lecture on the environment according to Islam. Yeah. So let's try to stay on this subject today. However, when attributed to the people of Islam, these terms refer to sin. So disbelief, going away from what Allah has said, contradicting what Allah has said, is disbelief. Just contradicting it. Which means you're going to have what? You're going to have doubt. Because any book, if I give you a math book, for example, and you say, well, and we got some teachers in here, so help me out. They look at the math book and they say, I like this, and I like this, and I like this, but I don't think the way they're teaching this is very good. What's that called? I doubt this methodology. It's a problem. Ibn Jarir comments, losers is plural for loser. So this word refers to whoever decreased his or her own share of Allah's mercy by disobeying Him. Just as the merchant loses in his trade by sustaining capital loss. That's the upside down mortgage I'm talking about. Such is the case with the hypocrite and the disbeliever who lose their share of the mercy that Allah has in store for His servants on the day of resurrection. And that is when the disbelievers and the hypocrites most desperately need Allah's mercy. Okay? So I wanted to... the loss incurred when a capital asset, investment, or real estate decreases in value. So look what Allah gave us. If we do not implement the teachings of Allah, our spiritual account decreases in value. Does that make sense, folks?
Yes.
Yeah. Just want to make sure I'm not leaving any points out here that I want to make.
I lost $20,000 in my property. back
But
home.
you didn't lose your blessing in Salah.
No, I left, in New York. New York, London.
And then verse 28. How can you disbelieve? And look at the word here, folks. To disbelieve is that you're in denial. How can you deny Allah when you were lifeless and He brought you to life? Then He will cause you to die. Then He will bring you back to life. And then to Him you will return. And before I even go into this more, let me do verse 29 and then we'll come back to it. It is He who created for you all of that which is on the earth. Then He directed Himself to heaven, His being above all creation, and made them 7 heavens, and He is the knowing of all things. The verse before these affirmed Tawheed, the oneness of Allah, and prophethood, provided proofs, and rebutted the whimsical and false notions of doubters and disbelievers. So here He says, how can you disbelieve? When you look at the 7 layers of protection that I've given you in the skies, in the atmosphere, the 7 earths, I've given you all of these minerals. How can you deny Allah? How can you disbelieve?